Hoyo's practices have gotten ridiculous. When will you decide that you finally had enough? We all have a tipping point, but what will be your tipping point? Let's talk about it right now. Go. Look, I'm gonna be honest, the state of Hoyo right now feels very uncertain. I mean, it feels like the entire gacha category is at a standstill waiting for the next dosage of dopamine to release. I need another hit, just one more, please. Sorry. It's honestly a bit sad that I feel the need to discuss this in a video, but I believe this industry has gotten to a point that players should proactively decide what aspects of a game would cause them to quit. I think going into a new game, we should have some sort of realization in our head or some sort of idealization in our head that would be the tipping point for us. I think particularly for those that are familiar with gacha companies' strategies to milk money, you know, I'm milking udders right now, not anything weird. I've been recently thinking about what it would take for me to quit Genshin Impact. Of course, HSR is in the discussion as well, but I think as far as Genshin goes, I have a positive disposition towards the game still relatively because there's a lot to talk about with there. I'm not going to divulge too far into that. But I think it's realistic to think like, why has everyone else quit? Why has everyone else moved on? And maybe I need to do some self-reflecting. But regardless, so this pertains to both games, HSR and Genshin. I believe it's a very healthy approach to ensure that you're respecting yourself and your time to have this metaphorical line drawn in the sand of what would be the tipping point, you know, and sometimes it'll take a bit when you're learning a new game to see what their practices are individually within that game. But as you go on, as time goes on, you should be thinking, okay, I believe that this is not fair, or I believe that this is not good. Let's keep an eye on it. Let's maintain our vision on it. The example that I have to pull is with Wizardry, and that game is very good, and I've been grinding it very heavily, but the monetization elements of that game are piss poor. So that is something I'm keeping my eye on. I'm scrutinizing. However, it hasn't been an issue thus far because the need to pull isn't too prevalent in that game so far yet. We'll see. I think it's very fair to say that in the real world or in real world circumstances, people create a divisional line where they will walk away from something, or if someone disrespects them, they'll walk away from something. So this is very pertinent to the digital world as well. Why can't we have this in the digital world also? I know it's meant to be fun, and it is fun, but just be conscious of the negative practices that you're allowing yourself to experience. So that all being said, it's interesting that we allow gacha games to get away with so much, you know, and I believe it is partially due to the crowd that it attracts, you know, myself included. I'm not shaming anyone here because I partake in it as well. I mean, we're weebs, we're at least somewhat into gambling. I mean, I love getting that 50-50 win. I'll just say it. It's a little hit of dopamine, but, you know, it's just important to analyze our self-behavior. That's what I've been doing lately, and that's what I aim to make aware or make light of in my videos. So my first point is going to be Mavuika. Look, HSR aside, Hoyo has done a relatively good job with managing power creep in Genshin. Even with ZZZ, which we saw in the live stream update, they're going to be increasing the power level of older units already in 1.6. So that game is doing very well at listening to their community. However, obviously they need to listen a bit better in that game because, well, they're struggling a little bit, let's be honest. But I mean, they're not struggling per se, but compared to other Hoyo games, yeah. But specifically back to Genshin, most characters still have a purpose, and although some of the roster has been one-to-one power creep, you can still use the weaker alternatives to clear the abyss with the right scenario or with the right comp. I mean, we still have 1.0 units that are extremely usable and extremely prevalent in the meta, and it's like, man, do I really need to look at this Bennett guy again? Can we get this dude with his stupid little shorts and his crazy little white hair and his annoying, oh yeah, positive disposition? I hate positivity. You know, it drives me mad. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. But regardless, though, you have Shangling, you have Singcho, you have Bennett. Like, these guys have not gone anywhere. My initial thoughts towards Genshin when I first started as a player was there has to be some sort of developer in this game or in Genshin's staff that really cares about the actual gameplay experience, and they're implementing these characters at a power level that is really good to the player, really fair to the player, because they care about the product they're making. But since then, we've strayed further and further from that rhetoric or from that strategy. But at the very least, those characters are still usable to this day, whether it be a calculated decision or whether it be a mistake, they are still relevant. That being said, though, Mavuika is quite disgusting. That character is actually Thanos of Teyvat. She is easily the best DPS in the game, hands down. I'm seeing at least 30 seconds faster clear times on my Abyss runs. It is just easy mode when I put her in. It's like driving a Tesla, except for all of the arson committed to Tesla. We're not going to discuss that, but, you know, you can just fall asleep at the wheel with Mavuika. You just, you know, you press the button, you switch, you press the button. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. She is just unreal. But I want to preface the upcoming discussion by saying that I'm actually okay with her being powerful. Look, in anime anime, we wait through the entire duration of a show to see a character ascertain their ultimate power level. It's very satisfying to see that character reach that potential and obliterate all of their opposition, just like I obliterated my social life by being a gacha player. Seriously though, I do feel it is okay to fulfill the ultimate power fantasy to a player by releasing a pinnacle DPS character that surpasses all other units before it. It's very fun, at least for a while, to feel giga busted in a game, until it isn't fun anymore and everything just falls over. However, all of this aside, for the health and integrity of the game, Mavuika can never be surpassed by another DPS. At least not in terms of raw damage output or her damage ceiling. This unit already makes older units feel outdated. It's like using a screwdriver to drill a nail into a wall instead of a power drill. You could definitely do it, but why would you do it when your power drill is sitting right there ready to save you a ton of time and effort? My point is, Hoyo needs to make DPS focused units do less damage than her, or equal damage to her at most. This is a pivotal time, and what they decide to do will dictate whether Genshin goes the HSR route, or it continues to be somewhat pro-consumer in the sense that your purchase will be relevant throughout the game with the Genshin Impact route. But since it's Hoyo we're talking about, my optimism is not existent, to be honest. I believe that they will almost certainly release a unit that is more powerful than her in the 6.0 patch. Hell, they could even do it in the remaining 5.0 patch, knowing Hoyo. And then we have a character like Tribi, who is underrated in the amount of power creep that she's added to the game. Look, let's be honest, look at the timeline of Genshin and look at the timeline of HSR. We are moving at a very, very rapid pace in HSR. Tribi is a character that is a support that also has DPS attached to her kit. This has far bigger implications than people realize. This means that now in our team composition structure, we need to make sure that all 4 of our units are doing sufficient damage. In the past, in Genshin, it is very rare, or it took very long for them to release a damage-centric support, and that was Furina, who was able to do off-field damage and also add damage to the entire team. But even Furina has drawbacks where you need to slot a specific character, a healer, to really get her full potential. In Star Rail, we're seeing Tribi, who came out very, very early compared to the timeline of Genshin, and she is adding damage to your team now, and it's very worrisome. We should be very worried about it. I will say that the Harmony Trailblazer was the first instance of this, but he is forced to be, or he or she is forced to be within a specific archetype and has less flexibility than Tribi does. So it is very worrisome to see that. Not only that though, in HSR we're seeing power creep in the same patch, which is very, very new and very worrisome, right? So we have seen 3.0 characters be power crept in 3.0, with some of them not having passives and some of them having passives. So that in itself should be a big red flag, or a big red line drawn in the sand. And I'm going to be making more content about Tribi going forward, and we'll talk about that in more depth. Look, I get it, man. I'm a gacha player also. I realize that this takes a lot of time to develop your account. You get attachment to certain characters, and it feels good to complete them. And this is all just worsened or intensified if you spent a lot of money in the game. I'm beginning to realize time sunk fallacy, you know, and I want to address in my head that it's okay to step away, because the longer I continue, the worse the feeling of stepping away from my account will be. So it's like, you got to pull the band-aid at some point. You got to just pull it out. You know, I know, okay, that was not supposed to be an innuendo. See, my couch can pull out, but I can't, I guess. I mean, it is what it is. I am someone who suffers from what I call time anxiety. This is something that I've made up, or maybe it is not made up. I don't know. I want to min-max my day. This is why I stayed up till nefarious hours when I was young and functioned on 3 to 4 hours of sleep every day at school, because I wanted to get the most out of my day. And just, you know, walking away from such a big time investment is terrifying for me. But, you know, I'm addressing that now. I am being more honest to myself, and I want to create the line that I step away from Genshin Impact particularly, and HSR's next. I'm thinking about it now. Obviously the Castorice situation is very tempting for me to create a line there, but I think I'm going to stick with it for now. I do enjoy HSR still, but there are obviously a lot of issues. So with all of that being said, I want to declare that once they do power creep Mavuika, I'm not going to say if they do, because it's going to be a when. I have decided that that will be my red line in the sand, and I will be quitting Genshin Impact when that day comes. That is my breaking point. I wish you would step back from that ledge, my... Okay, I'm gonna get DMCA'd, but you know what I'm saying. But with all seriousness, though, I do implore all gacha players to consider at what point a game dev has gone too far. Where will you finally acknowledge that you're being disrespected and step away from the game? That is what I needed to take time to reflect on. We all have our vices. Yours just happens to be an overwhelming addiction to abstinence. You're a gacha player, sorry. So long as moderation is used and we are fair to our needs, I believe you can healthily play some of these games. Just don't let them walk all over you. I mean, honestly, these are full-fledged AAA-esque games that are free to play or can be free to play. It's a very nice value proposition for people. It could be, anyways, if we're respecting ourselves. Anyways, what do you guys think about this? Is Mavuika too far? Is 3.0 worrisome for you? Why are Chihuahuas so evil? This has been Knight. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Mwah.